Hi and welcome to Topic Busters from onmaths. Today we're looking at sine and cosine rules. If you don't have a right angle triangle, see it as a sine. Enjoy! Hi and welcome to another Topic Busters from onmaths. So we're looking at situations where you don't have a right angle triangle but you're asked to find a length or an angle. This is kind of grade 7, grade 8 territory, so it'll be in the second half of the higher paper. I hope you find it useful. If you enjoy it, click like and subscribe. Thank you. Okay, so let's get started with a bit of trigonometry. So the steps of doing trig is, first of all, it's a right angle triangle, and it's right angled there, and we have two lengths and an angle, so we know we're going to be using SOHCAHTOA. So step one is label the sides. The opposite to the right angle is the hypotenuse, the one opposite the marked angle is the opposite, and the one between the right angle and the angle in the question is the adjacent. We're not using the adjacent, so let's put our SOHCAHTOA in. SOHCAHTOA. Okay, so we don't use the adjacent, so it's not going to be cat or toa. It's going to be SOH, and SOH means sine, and it's always the angle. So sine 30 equals the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 8. And to solve that, we're going to times both sides by 8. So x equals 8 sine 30. And I can do that on my calculator. So 8 sine 30. And don't forget, whenever you click sine, it opens a bracket. So don't forget to shut the bracket. And it's saying that that is going to be 4 centimeters. Brilliant. Okay, let's do the same with the next one. So we have our hypotenuse here. We have our adjacent here, because we've got the right angle here, and we're not using the opposite, so let's have a look. A and H will be K. Okay, so that K is cos the angle equals the adjacent, which is 10 over x. Okay, so when you're in this situation, you can grab that and you can grab that and swap them over. Basically, you're going to times both sides by x and divide both sides by cos 40. So you end up with x equals 10 over cos 40. So if you just remember, you can always swap them, and that's fine. So 10 over cos 40, and don't forget to close that bracket, otherwise you get an error on the calculator. And it's 13.05 centimeters to 2 decimal places. So we're going to have to round it. Okay, last one. So let's label it. We've got our adjacent and our opposite, so we're not using the hypotenuse, and so that's going to be TOA. So we've got tan x equals the opposite, which is 5, over the adjacent, which is 6, and then we're going to inverse tan both sides. So x equals the inverse tan of 5 over 6, which equals, so inverse tan 5 over 6, which equals 39.81 to 2 decimal places. Degrees, not centimeters, not a length, and that's to 2 decimal places. Okay, have a go. Okay, so let's start off with the first one. Let's label them. So we've got the adjacent here between the right angle and the angle, and the hypotenuse here, which is opposite the right angle. We don't need to label the opposite because it's not interesting at all to us. So it's going to be K, because it uses A and H. So that is cos 23 equals x over 5. So times both sides by 5, and you get x equals 5 cos 23. Just be careful, if you type in cos 23 times 5, be careful to close the bracket. I just put the 5 first and it becomes a lot easier, so then I don't make that mistake. And that equals 4.60 to 2 decimal places, centimeters. Okay, next one. So we've got the H And we've got the A again. A little bit of a trick question here, because it's cat again. So it's going to be cos 32 equals, and it's A, which is 6.3, over H, which is X. And you can swap these two around. Technically you're timesing by X and dividing by cos 32. But if you don't remember that, just swap them around. So whenever the unknown's at the bottom, just swap it. And as I said before, it's really important that you close the bracket, because when you're in a fraction, it will come up with an error if you don't close the bracket after the 32. And we get 7.43 centimetres to 2 decimal places. Okay, and the last one. So we've got the hypotenuse, we've got the opposite, we don't have A, so this is going to be so it's sine the angle, which we called X, equals the opposite, which is 7, over the hypotenuse, which is 15. And we said we get inverse sine both sides. So X equals the inverse sine of 7 over 15. Big bracket. And I'm going to do the equals on the same line because I've run out of space. You shouldn't have multiple equals on the same line. Let's just put that in. That is 27.82 centimetre, because again, obviously it's an angle, to 2 decimal places. If you need any more practice on that, we have a video on just Pythagoras and trigonometry, so take a look. Let's get started with Sine and Cosine Rule. Okay, so we've got unknown angles and lengths here, but we don't have a right angle triangle. And whenever we don't have a right angle triangle and we're trying to find angles and lengths, and it's towards the second half of the exam paper, it's probably going to be the sine or cosine rule. We're going to do the sine rule first. So with the sine rule, the first thing is to label the lengths and the sides. And we do this by labelling an angle capital A, and then the length opposite it lowercase a, and then another angle uppercase B, and then the length opposite it lowercase b. Now I always start off with the unknown being A. So the unknown here is an angle, and I'm going to label it capital A. Now the length opposite it, so I'm going to cross from it, I'm going to call lowercase a. And then we've got another angle here given to us, which I'm going to label uppercase B, and a length opposite lowercase b. Now whenever the unknown is an angle, the way we're going to do this is we're going to do sine A, so it's always sine the angle, over the length, equals sine B over the length B. And then I'm going to substitute that in. I'd normally go down the page, but I'm going to go across here because I've got a bit more room. So A is X over lowercase a, which is 14, equals sine 120 over, and let's have a look what lowercase b is, 20. And then I'm going to times 14 both sides. So I'm going to times 14 to get sine x on its own. And so it's going to be sine x equals, and it's going to be 14 sine 120 over 20. You can do this all in the calculator. And then I'm going to inverse sine both sides. So it's x equals the inverse sine of 14 sine 120 over 20. So I'm going to type that into my calculator now. So shift sine, and then we're going to do a fraction, and we're going to do 14 sine 120, close bracket, over 20. I'm going to close the big bracket, and I get the answer 37.32 to 2 decimal places. Okay, now on to the next question. So what's my unknown? My unknown is actually a length on the second question. So lowercase a, I'm going to go opposite it to find the angle, which is an uppercase A. and I'm going to mark the other length, lowercase b, so why I've written an A, and I'm going to go opposite it to label that a uppercase B. Now the sine rule can work both ways. It can work as the way I used it before, but whenever the unknown is a length, what I do is I just put A at the top, and it just makes things easier. And so we're going to have A over sine capital A equals B over sine capital B. Okay, so let's substitute it in. So we've got x over sine 50 equals, and then what's lowercase b, 5 over sine, oh, that's not A, that's B. Let's just change that. This is why you've got to check your working out. So the uppercase B is sine 50, lowercase a, uppercase A is sine 40. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is just times both sides by sine 40, and you can see why it was a lot easier putting the length at the top. Okay, so we've got 5 sine 40 over sine 50. I'm going to run out of space for the last question, so we've got fraction button, 5 sine 40, and close the bracket, over sine 50, close the bracket. And that gives me 4.20 to 2 decimal places. Okay, this last question seems a bit weird because we can label the length lowercase a, but we're going searching for the angle and we're kind of like stuck because there's no angle there. However, there is, because we know that angles in a triangle add up to 180. So we know that that's going to be, well, 180 take away 30 plus 50. So that's going to be 100 degrees there. So we can still use that, and sometimes you're just going to have to work it out, unfortunately. The other length is there, so opposite that, it's going to be uppercase B there. Brilliant. Okay, so the unknown here is, what is it? It's a length. So we're going to start off with that at the top. I'm going to try and squeeze it in at the bottom right of the page here. So we've got A over sine A equals B over sine B. So what is A? A is x, sine A is 100. I'm double checking this time. Lowercase b is 3 and sine 30. So we're going to have x equals, and we're going to times both sides by sine 100. I'm not going to write it. So it would be 3 sine 100 over sine 30. And if I calculate this right, I should just be able to fit this in. So fraction button, 3 sine 100 over sine 30. And don't forget to close the bracket. And I get 5.91 to 2 decimal places. Okay, have a go. Okay, so for this first question, we are going to label the sides and the angles. So the first one I'm going to label is this one because this is the unknown, and the length opposite it is going to be a lowercase a. And then this is going to be the other angle, and this is going to be the other length I use. So the unknown is the angle, so I'm going to start off with sine x, so sine A over A, and the lowercase a is going to be 7, and equals sine uppercase B, which is 17, over lowercase b, which is 4. Then I'm going to times both sides by 7, so I've got sine x equals 7 sine 17 over 4. Then I'm going to inverse sine both sides, and you should really write all this down, but I'm not, just to save a bit of time. So make sure you write down what you're doing. Okay, let's type that into the calculator. So inverse sine, fraction button, 7 sine 17, close bracket, over 4, close bracket. So many brackets to close, right, equals 30.77 to 2 decimal places. Okay, next one. we've got lowercase a here, because that's the x, and so the angle's going to be opposite it. And then this one's going to be b, and this is going to be lowercase b. So we're going to start off with the x at the top. And what I'm going to do is try and put lines down to try and divide my working out a little bit. Let's try and keep them into the lines. I don't know whether this will work, but we'll try it. Okay, so we're going to have lowercase a, which is going to be x over sine uppercase a, which is 40, equals, and then we're going to have lowercase b, which is 3 over sine 20. Okay, we get times both sides by sine 40, so we end up with 3 sine 40 over sine 20. And so let's type that in. So fraction button, 3 sine 40, close bracket. And let's go down to the bottom. So sine 20, close bracket. And I get the answer of 5.64 to 2 decimal places. Okay, this last one. So we've got lowercase a here, and we don't currently have uppercase a, so we've got to work it out. So 140 plus 21 is obviously going to be 161. So if you take that away from 180, we're left with 19 there. Okay, and then we've got lowercase b here and uppercase b here. Okay, so we're trying to find the length. So lowercase a is going to be at the top. So it's going to be x over sine 19 equals, and then the lowercase b, which is 17 over sine, what have we got, 21. Okay, times both sides by sine 19, so x equals 17 sine 19 over sine 21. Let's type that in, so fraction button, 17 sine 19, close bracket, over sine 21, close bracket. And I get 15.44. That's to do 2 decimal places. Excellent. Something really important to remember when you do this is you can only ever sine an angle. So if you're not quite sure which one goes where, the angle has to be the one that you sine. You can never sine a length. It never makes sense to do sine, cos, or tan a length. It only ever makes sense if you do it with an angle. Okay, so onwards and upwards, we've done the sine rule. Now let's look at the cosine rule. Now, I want you to notice what is different in this question. In this question, we're given 3 sides and an angle. Now, with the sine, we needed an angle and an opposite side, an angle on an opposite side, and one of those can be unknown. Here, we have 3 lengths and 1 angle, with one of them being unknown. Okay, and it's really important that you understand when to use which, because it doesn't tell you in the question, by the way, this is the sine rule, by the way, this is the cosine rule. Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to start off with a formula. Now the formula is a squared equals b squared plus c squared. Looks a bit like Pythagoras at this point. Then take away 2bc cos a, and this cos is why it's called the cosine rule. So the a, b, c and a are all the same as what we've just learnt. So the capital A here is the one angle that we're going to be using with the cosine rule, and that's going to be the angle. All the rest are lengths. So with b and c, it doesn't actually matter which way you label them. Here we're adding them, and here we're timesing them. So it doesn't matter which way around they are, you'll get the same answer. So I'm going to call b the 15 here, and c the 17 here. Okay, what does matter is that the lowercase a is opposite the angle, like we had before, and that's going to be the lowercase a there. Okay, now we know our letters, we're just going to put them into the formula. So x squared equals b squared, 15 squared, plus c squared, 17 squared, minus 2 times b, which is 15, times c, which is 17, times cos the angle, which is 14. Okay, so I'm going to put that all into my calculator. 15 squared plus 17 squared, take away brackets, 2 times 15 times 17 times cos 14, close brackets, and press equals. And I get 19.19149, blah, blah, blah. But that's x squared, so we need to square root my answer. So to do that quickly with the calculator, I'm just going to press the root button and then click the answer button, and that will just square root it for me. So I get 4.38 to 2 decimal places. Okay, you might have noticed there's something different with the next question, so let's just label it as we did before. Again, it doesn't matter which way around you put the B and the C, and the lowercase a is important that it's opposite the angle. Okay, so I'm going to write the formula again. Now this formula is all about finding that length A, so that's why it's there. But on this question, we don't want length A, we want angle A. So I'm going to have to rearrange this formula. So I'm going to start by adding 2bc cos A on both sides. So we're going to have a squared plus 2bc cos A equals b squared plus c squared. Then I'm going to take away the a squared, so I end up with 2bc cos A equals b squared plus c squared minus a squared. And then I'm going to just divide out this stuff here. So it's cos A equals b squared plus c squared minus a squared over 2bc. And most formula books or most revision guides, whatever, leave it at that. But obviously, to find A, I'm going to have to inverse cos. So let's substitute everything in. So A is known as x in this question. And what have we got? B squared, so 10 squared plus c squared minus 5 squared, so a squared, over 2 times b times c. And what I'm going to do is type that into my calculator. So I'm going to press the fraction button first. So 10 squared plus 7 squared. And if you've got a calculator, I know, we know it's 100 plus 49 and take away 25, but I'll let the calculator do the work. 2 times 10 times 7 at the bottom. I'm going to press equals, and it says it's 31 over 35. Then what I'm going to do is press inverse cos, so shift and cos, and then the answer, so A and S, or whatever it says in the calculator. And that gives me 27.66 to 2 decimal places. Okay, have a go. Okay, so I'm going to start this question by labelling all the bits, so lowercase a, and I'm going to pick B here and C here, it doesn't matter which way around those two go. So we've got a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos A. So it's going to be x squared equals b squared, so 5 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 times 5 times 13 times cos 27. Okay, let's type that into my calculator. So what you might want to do is just press square root at the start and just work out what x is straight away. So 5 squared, so I press square root first, then 5 squared plus 13 squared, take away brackets, 2 times 5 times 13 times cos 27, close bracket, and I get 8.84 to 2 decimal places. Okay, next one. So this time I'm going to have to rearrange the formula, and when I do that, I get cos A equals b squared plus c squared minus a squared, all over 2bc. And so A is going to be, let's substitute in the stuff first, show what we're doing. So it's going to be cos x equals, so I haven't labelled it, so that's going to be A pick that one as B and that one as C. So 3 squared plus 11 squared minus 13 squared over 2 times 3 times 11. And so what I'm going to do is just press inverse cos first of all, because that's how we're going to find x, and fraction button, and we're going to type in 3 squared plus 11 squared minus 13 squared, and then go to the bottom of the fraction, 2 times 3 times 11, close the bracket, and press equals. It says 126.22, again to 2 decimal places. And that's an angle, so I haven't really put degrees or units on any of these. Okay, the last point is without looking, write the sine and cosine formula. The reason I say that is because you need to know them off by heart. Now the sine formula is a bit easier than the cosine formula, but what I recommend is you do loads of these and just get used to doing it without looking at the formula. Just get used to doing it from your head. And if you need to look, that's absolutely fine. But try and learn both the sine and the cosine formulae. Thank you very much for watching this Topic Busters. If you enjoyed this one and want to see more, please look at our YouTube account. Just type in onmaths on YouTube and we come up. Otherwise, go to the website onmaths.com and you can have a go at all of our predictions, Topic Busters, demon questions, mini mocks, and countless other things. Thank you very much.